Welcome to the Bigfoot Society. We've got a special show for you today. We've got my favorite comments from the last few shows and also some amazing calls that came in last Saturday night. So if you missed it, you want to make sure you listen to this episode. If you've got anything to report, please reach out to me, bigfootsociety@gmail.com, if you want to share your encounter. And if you want to hear extra shows only for supporters, you can go to patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. And now let's get on with the show. All right, Bigfoot Society, we've got an interesting episode coming up. And so I get a lot of comments. I get a ton of them. And what I would like to do is to go through some comments that I've got recently on the YouTube channel. And I respond to everyone. I try to respond to most of them. Listeners share a lot of really intense and amazing Bigfoot encounters in the YouTube comments, and I try to usually comment back, hey, send me more info. I'd like to talk to you about this at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. So these episodes are a way of me making sure that hopefully you hear that I am interested in you reaching out via email, because I would love to talk to you more, potentially for the podcast. And I just think they're really cool encounters. So let's see what we've got here. It's a comment that came in off of episode 241, Terrifying Bigfoot Encounter in Chattahoochee National Forest. North Georgia is definitely Sioux Kaloo stomping grounds, folks. I grew up there. My grandmother was full Cherokee just across the Tennessee and Alabama areas also. And I've had 4 really cool encounters in those areas, but never a sighting. Now, once I did a backflip off an 80-foot cliff at Little River Canyon all alone early morning after camping out. When I came up, I happily hollered, "Woo!" And I heard a whoop in reply, but no one was in sight anywhere. At the time, I thought probably a bird of some sort, but now I'm thinking BF, which I'm going to guess stands for Bigfoot. Something had snapped a tree branch near me just as I was faking falling asleep the night before. I rolled off the hood of my '68 Camaro, my bed, with my pistol ready, but I said, "Whoever you are, I don't want to shoot you." Then I prayed the Lord's Prayer out loud. I never heard one footstep or any sound of it leaving the area, but I felt safe after that and quickly went to sleep as I had been awake about 60 hours. Good old days of freedom, 1984. There's a lot going on in there. And it might be fun to talk to that person, but I mean, I would love to see a old school 80s TV episode based on that comment. I mean, rolling off the hood of your '68 Camaro, that's pretty solid. So thank you for sharing. Coming up next, we've got a comment that came in on episode 255, the terrifying story of a hunter found mangled below the tree stand. This is when I interviewed John Burton about a lot of interesting things to do with Bigfoot down in the South, but especially the one story that sticks out is how the hunter was found mangled under his tree stand. I'm going to go ahead and read the comment. Does this sound familiar to anyone? Story of a family of 4 where mom, dad, and daughter were ripped apart. Young boy untouched. Boy said big hairy monsters did it. After a bunch of therapy or hypnosis or whatever, they got more details that mom and daughter saw a Sasquatch watching them, screamed, so dad tried to protect them. Sorry, I don't recall what that entailed. Anyways, that caused several Sasquatch to charge in and just pull off limbs from the people and really tear them up. But the boy, I guess, just kind of stood there and didn't do a thing. I mean, guys, if you're a little kid, you're going to be in shock at that point, right? Which is most likely why they let him be. Sorry, I can't remember where I heard that story from. Horrible memory these days. But I was curious if anyone else had heard anything that sounds like that. From what I remember, I'm the from it law enforcement covered it up really well. Thanks in advance for any information anyone might have. These animals are not all friendly. There's a lot going on there. Interesting story. That's one I haven't heard of myself, but guys, if you have heard of that story and you know where it's from, maybe it's from another podcast or YouTube channel or something like that, go ahead and put it in the comments, please, and we'll see if we can track that one down. Also, make sure that make sure that you are following my buddy Roger over at Squatch and Holler, as he just captured some very interesting audio down there in Alabama, a similar area, very close. And it's some wild Bigfoot audio. So make sure you follow Squatch and Holler over there on YouTube. Roger puts out some great content, and you definitely want to hear that Bigfoot audio. Let's continue with a comment that came in on episode 293, which is a listener favorite, 4-year standoff with Sasquatch in Rainier, Oregon. Commenter says, he doesn't just live there. Bigfoot is everywhere. I camp at Crescent Lake, Washington in the Olympic National Park. And I woke up after a long nap to go use the restroom about 100 feet from camp. My dog and I walked, and I heard a loud holler ahead of us. Stopped, backed up, and peed in the camp. Woke up my BF in the tent, and it hollered again. Another time, I decided to go solo camp at Hobuck Beach at Knee Bay, Washington. Remote campground flooded that day as a big storm came earlier, and I got a camp with plenty of wood and burned it all night. During sunset, I hiked the beach. No one was there but a dad and kid with a kite, and I was collecting rocks, shells, and kept hearing a whistling in the hedgerow above me. Nothing was around. The beach was vacant. I headed back to camp and built a bonfire the rest of the night. I stayed up safe around it. No one but myself and my Bigfoot friend were awake. Legend of the Maka tribe says, don't let your children play in the woods alone. They like to take them, and you can hear them whistling in the wind. I always leave no trace but a special gift as thanks. Very interesting. That is something, of course, that I hear in many of the accounts, that people start to hear a whistling sound. Let me know in the comments if you have experienced weird whistling that you think is Bigfoot related when you're out in the woods. My apologies if I didn't say the right name of the locations. I tried to read them as best I could. Let's go on to the re-release of episode 420, Horrifying Bigfoot Tales of Oak Ridge, Oregon, which I just want to put in real quick. Guys, Sasquatch Summerfest is coming up soon in July. Go to sasquatchsummerfest.com, and I hope to see you there. I will be there, not vending, not speaking, but I did get an invite to come out and check it out. So I'll be around hoping to record people's Bigfoot encounters for the podcast. So I hope to see you there. If you want to get tickets for it at half off, the organizers were nice enough to give me a discount code that you could use. It's Bigfoot Society, 2 words. That gives you 50% off your tickets, which for a 3-day festival is pretty substantial. Let's get to the comment story here. I live on the northern Oregon coast, and I always thought Bigfoot was a silly tourist novelty. My house has water in the front and is in the forest. My neighbor has an apple tree. Last year, I kept hearing something heavy stomping by my house. My dog started barking, and then my house was under attack. Over 50 apples were thrown hard at my house for 20 minutes. The apples were hitting the windows, and the sound was scary. I recorded some of it. I kind of hid because I'm a single girl. I don't think a human would stand there for 20 minutes throwing apples. No way. People are afraid of the police. I told a friend about what happened, and he mentioned Bigfoot. I started researching, and now I know the crazy sounds I've been hearing, the howling and the yelling and the stomping. I won't walk through the forest anymore, and I've always felt fear anyway. But they live right next to my house, and they're 100% real. I don't know how people deny their existence. If you want to experience it for yourself, come stay here in August when the apples are available. The screaming is haunting, and you'll have the truth. I would love to interview the person that left that comment about what you are experiencing on your property. Just the fact that over 50 apples were thrown hard at your house for 20 minutes, that's horrifying in itself. But at the end, the howling, yelling, stomping, would love to talk to you and help get your story, help you walk through what's going on, maybe ways that you can deal with what you're experiencing. Please reach out to me, bigfootsociety@gmail.com. From episode 353, where I talked to Randy about the Cumberland Plateau in Tennessee, comes an interesting multiple comments. Rutherford County, Tennessee. I have a slight disability, but basically retired, living with a person who doesn't want strangers coming around. And several incidents which I think are Sasquatch, including we both heard jabbering near the house. And I've been woke up by a strong putrid smell, like stinky feet, but 10 times worse. Numerous times that heavy items have been knocked over in the garage, including heavy items of wood, metal, or thick plastic. Knocks or cluttering noises at night high up on the brick wall outside my bedroom, which is the corner facing the backyard, and also taps on my window. One incident of tapping on the back door at night. And I would describe the knocks and taps as if a child was making them. That's the impression I get. Not like an animal just making noise, but like an infant or small child tapping or knocking, but not repeated tapping or knocks, like single taps or knocks. And some of the taps on the window to me actually sounded like someone taking a small branch with leaves, slapping the window with it. Okay, right there, I would say maybe look around the area outside your house, see if branches are near there. If there are branches near your house, that could be it. But if there aren't, then I'm not quite sure what we had going on there. He continues, or the individual continues, coyotes acting differently than they usually do, like a pack of at least 20 or more, maybe 50 feet straight from my bedroom window, aiming their vocalizations directly at that window. 2 are howling, and then the others instantly joined in some yipping, some screeching, and some barking. For a little over a minute, and then they all instantly stopped. Another time early at night, maybe 8 p.m., I was in my bedroom, and in about the same spot in the backyard, straight out from my window, I heard what sounded like a man screaming like he was being killed. And I really thought somebody was in trouble, and I was ready to run out there to have to do something. But then that sound changed to a man yelling, and then changed again to a coyote barking. The entire sound lasted a little less than a minute. I've searched online for sounds of coyotes that sound like that. I've heard them screaming, but they sound like women. The sound was not anything like those sounds. It's very interesting. That is something that I do hear from a few different people, where they hear an animal sound and then it changes to something that kind of sounds like it, but not really. An example of this that'll come up in a future episode. I'm talking to a woman from Pacific Northwest that was able to record frog noises. But the main thing that was the weirdest was she recorded what were ducks, but the ducks were a little off, and then the ducks go down into what sounds like a really deep, imagine a huge muscular duck. It's the wildest thing. You'll hear that in an upcoming episode. Let's continue. I also wonder about some other incidents, but maybe they can be explained as something that does happen and pertains to known species. On more than one occasion, closed boxes of rat poison in the garage, torn open, and all of the pieces of rat poison are missing. So either some animals carrying them all away or eating all of them. And the other person here says is a big raccoon doing that, and that the big raccoon is also knocking over the heavy items in the garage. So maybe she's right, and that explains what is happening in the garage. Other incidents are numerous times that outside my bedroom window late at night, I hear what sounds like somebody taking a picnic table and dragging it on the ground. And I've wondered if maybe that is a buck whitetail rubbing against the brick wall of the house at night. Recently, my mom said that my brother said he was surprised to see one doing that, so I guess that could be what it is. I just heard it last night, in fact, outside my bedroom window, and I've tried to capture the sound on recording, but when I play it back, all I ever get is white noise. That's really interesting. Even though the sound is so loud that I can hear it even with the TV on, I've started saying, oh, it's just a buck rubbing against the house, and just mostly ignoring it. I think that's a more comforting thought anyway. I also now wonder about things that happened when I was maybe about 9 or 10 years old. We lived in Woodstock, Illinois, and at night sometimes it was hard for me to fall asleep because not far away in the distance I could hear the woodman. It sounded like somebody hitting a hammer on a piece of wood, but just single knocks separated by silence in between. And I was always afraid that the sound would get closer and closer, but it never did. I think some of these strange things can follow certain people no matter where they live. That would include other paranormal activity like things to do with ETs, including being in the company of military or other personnel as a small boy, or strange ESP experiences or ghost activity. And then I wonder if some of that might be hereditary, especially if you have things like Freemasons in your ancestry, or if your ancestors may have lived in areas that have paranormal history. I used to belong to the I'm going to mess up this name. Sorry, guys. I think this is a Tennessee town. Murfreesboro UFO and Paranormal Discussion Group back in the 1990s. And it was not uncommon to talk about these various different types of phenomena, possibly being related in some cases. I've also had a number of dreams about Sasquatch. Now, guys, before we get started, I know a few of you are saying, okay, this is where it's going to get. I don't know if I can handle this. There are more people than you think that this is happening to. And I'm learning this in the more recent episodes. And it's actually a question that I'm starting to ask people because I've noticed that a lot of people that have these encounters, it starts to come out in their dreams. That's something I'm still working through. So let's continue. I had an image in my head of looking down and seeing in front of me the side view of the top of a huge foot. It was roughly triangular in shape, very wide at the toes and very narrow at the heel. The skin was pink like a pig's-skin. It had the same diagonal, irregular squares, skin pattern like human skin. There were stiff black hairs all over it, but not covering it completely. I could also see 3 ridges on top under the skin, either muscles or bone. I'm not sure which, and the big toenail was curled up like some kind of crescent roll shape, and it was a dingy yellow color. Well, I'll never eat crescent rolls again. No, I probably will. All the toenails were dingy yellow. I have no conscious memory of seeing that in front of me, but it was very strong in my mind. I have made a couple of sketches of it to show what it looked like, and I don't know if it was a Sasquatch or something else, but it was very real in my mind that I saw it. Just for the record again, last night, so 3 nights in a row, I heard the picnic table noise outside my bedroom window. Also, I got some clarification from the other person here about the rat poison incidents in the garage. They're all tubs all made of plastic. They're not cardboard boxes. That's why the other person thinks it's raccoons getting into them because they have dexterous fingers, and you would need something like fingers to open these tubs and remove all the pieces of rat poison. Wondering if anyone has heard of Sasquatch getting into rat poison. Maybe they get a high from it, or maybe it helps them with an upset stomach. Also, I'm not divulging my exact location out of deference and consideration of a group already conducting Sasquatch research near this area. They were here, and I did hear them mentioning their intention of doing that. Very interesting. This individual, if you're listening to this, I would love to have you reach out, and I would love to just talk to you about what you're experiencing. First time I've ever heard rat poison be talked about in a Bigfoot encounter. If anyone else has heard of that being in a Bigfoot encounter, put it in the comments, please. Just he's extremely interesting. I feel like there's some more to it. Yeah, I would love to talk to you. Please reach out. Here's an interesting comment that came in on episode 421, and I'm reading it not to say I agree with it, but to maybe start some discussion. Kathy isn't wrong. Sasquatch is an animal just as humans are. The question is what type of animal. The evidence is there that confirms their existence. There was a biologist, his name escapes me, who was working with the government that performed autopsies on several from different areas of the U.S. that actually classified 4 different species. The government apparently put a gag order on this man to suppress the documents, but his living family members had confirmed the document's existence and I believe posted the evidence. Let's not forget that Dr. Melba Ketchum performed upwards of 3K DNA samples that all confirmed DNA of a modern female and an unknown male. There are many stories of this creature being killed by the U.S. military, found dead from multiple incidents, including a lightning strike in California, and several bodies collected after the eruption of Mount St. Helens. I think it's very clear most everything is already known of these species, but just not released to the public. It's a process just as the current slow release of the UFO and ET information. There's a lot to unpack from that comment. I get some version of this comment multiple times a week in my email or on the YouTube channel, on different other social media channels. Everyone thinks that, one, the government has knowledge of the Bigfoot, that maybe they even have one that they've captured or that they've taken a specimen of, or are they covering up, right? Also, everyone always brings up the bodies collected after the eruption of Mount St. Helens. Now, this biologist you're mentioning was performing autopsies on several from different areas of the U.S. I've never heard of that. I would be very curious to hear more. If anyone has any specific information regarding this biologist or bodies being collected after the eruption of Mount St. Helens, I would love to hear more specific info about that. Because again, I think that this is the one story that gets repeated over and over and over in Bigfoot lore, but no one has the solid evidence talking about Mount St. Helens eruption. So if you can't put it in the comments because you are afraid for your safety, you can reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Here's one from episode 419 with Carter Bouchard. Commenter says, I've heard so much negative behaviors from some of the top echelons in organization. I hate to hear he's involved with them. I just listened to another person with a Sasquatch encounter. At one point, he yelled out, okay, I'm leaving. This was immediately repeated back to him in his own voice, and it wasn't an echo. He was so freaked out hearing the exact replica of his words, his voice. That's extremely unsettling. I'm not sure how I would handle something like that. On episode 340, Henry Franzoni's episode, commenter says, you may want to go check them out in Washington State. Go up to Lake Isabel. It's in Gold Bar, Washington, just off of Reeder Road. The trailhead is right back to the left of the big mine. That only goes back about 25 feet. That's where me and my buddies all experienced them. And what an experience. Would love to hear more about the experience you had up there in Gold Bar, Washington. Please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Episode 421, someone or something keeps snapping grizzly bear necks in Paradise Valley. Commenter says, I was in New York State, the Catskill areas. I've had a few people comment about the Catskill areas, but something in the woods was mocking a terrified male goose, super loud barking like mastiffs, suddenly changing to the exact honking sound the goose was making, but 10 times louder. Poor goose took off like a shot at that point, a strategy to protect his family that seemed unable to fly away, gathered in the rushes at the edge of his pond. I didn't have the common sense to get into my car and leave, then went on to experience various screams in the woods on either side of me, and then the biggest King Kong roar anyone's ever heard. It lasted at least 3 seconds and sounded like nothing like the bear recordings I've been listening to since I got home. It's very extremely interesting. Again, as I said earlier in this, there are definitely times when there's some mimicking going on, but it sounds like they kind of fall out of the mimicking and just go into what they actually sound like. So it's a very interesting comment there. On the same episode, an individual comments about a Choctaw legend. In the tribal Choctaw story of the fight with Bigfoot, the leading warrior galloped into the fray among a group of huge Bigfoot brandishing a saber. The first Bigfoot the horse came close to punched or slapped the horse unconscious with a single blow. The leading warrior fell to the ground, and that same Bigfoot tore his head clean off in a few seconds. These Bigfoot, 5 to 7 of them, were dispatched using 50 cal sharps, buffalo rifles from a short distance. This was 1855, if you're interested. So, believe the individual is talking about the 1855 Bigfoot Choctaw War, which has been proven to actually just been based on a blog post and is not actually a part of history. So, I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you think that the 1855 Choctaw Bigfoot war story, I believe it's like Captain or Commander LaFleur down in Oklahoma, I believe. Let me know if you know if that's just a legend or if that actually happened. From what I've been told directly, it was just based on a blog post that kind of got its own traction. In episode 408, Bigfoot stalks hunters in Montana, there's a comment that came in, and I'll just read the comment. I live in Grafton, New Hampshire. Lived here in the woods for 45 years. I had an experience 6 years back. I believed people, but having never had any experience, I didn't think they were up here. A friend and I took a Jeep trip with our daughters out on a Class 6 road early fall. We stopped the Jeep at what is known as the Bog, a popular area for four-wheel drive enthusiasts on weekends. This was a weekday, beautiful day, no one around for miles. A huge scream roar came from across the bog that was one of the loudest sounds I've ever heard in my life. It moved air, and I saw Pantera twice in the 90s. My friend and I were speechless. The sound was very, very long, from a low roar rising to a very high screech. Across the bog, all sounds of birds and insects stopped. I was instinctively terrified, but also excited. I told my buddy, "Holy man, that's a Sasquatch." He nervously said, "No, it's just a bear." Jumped in the Jeep and immediately started back down the old road. We both knew we'd been told to get out of there, and we had our girls with us. I pointed out that his bear claim was absurd. We grew up here. Bears don't make that sound. He just kept driving with his face turned white while he tried to change the subject. Drove me and my daughter directly home, a quick drop-off, a drastic departure from what started as a leisurely autumn Jeep cruise with our kids. He would never speak of it again. In fact, we don't talk, and we're not friends anymore. My hometown is in west central New Hampshire, half an hour east of Dartmouth College. That is my only validating experience concerning these creatures, but I knew immediately what we were hearing out there was a universal message telling us to get out of its area. Now I know they are real. That is a wild experience, and I know that area pretty well in New Hampshire since I did grow up in western Massachusetts. I actually grew up 500 feet south of New Hampshire, so very close to it. And I believe I did get an email from this individual as well. I will be reaching out in a few days. Just on the side, guys, my email is daunting. I love the emails I get. I get a ton of emails every day, and please keep sending them. Just know that it could take, at this point, about a week for me to be able to get back in touch with you, just because got a lot going on right now, guys. But please keep sending what you've experienced. I love to read them, and it does help. And that's where a lot of my interviews come from, is people just emailing me out of the blue, and we'll go from there. A few days back, I re-released the Prince of Wales Island episode where I talked to Alex about what he's heard from that island when he was there as a Salvation Army chaplain. Some very interesting comments came in on that episode. I'm and read through some of them right now, just so that these people know that I would love them to contact me. And yeah, so very interesting stuff. We had one person who wrote, in 1968, we just moved from Oregon to Vashon Island, Washington, as an 8-year-old, myself and 3 younger sisters. We would walk in the woods across the island, or around the island. There was someone who lived in the woods. We called him Big Harry. We would wave, say hi, but never feared him, but left him alone also. We never told parents. We never knew words like Sasquatch or Bigfoot. Sounds like an incredible story. Would love to chat with you. Please reach out. Another individual shares that my Tlingit friend in Southeast Alaska saw a friend of Kushtaka when she was young while on her grandpa's fishing boat. They hit a bad squall and had to anchor in Thompson Bay, an absolute no-go water to venture into by all the natives in that area, all due to it being a known place for Kushtaka. Totally forbidden, but her grandpa told her he'd make the decision as he knew they'd die if they didn't go to the shelter of the bay. Anyway, Grandpa was asleep early the next morning when she'd woken up and saw 5 to 7 humans dressed in ancient traditional native dress, i.e. hats and shawls made from cedar bark. They walked up to just across from where their boat was anchored and just stood there and stared at her. After a few minutes, she swore that she saw them morph into huge land otters, walk into the water, go under, and disappear. She hadn't wanted to wake her grandfather at that moment and didn't want to anger him. He'd woken up soon after and saw that she was freaked out about something, asked her why, and as soon as she told him what she just witnessed, he didn't say a thing before pulling up anchor and getting out of there. He told her never to tell anyone that they motored into Thompson Bay. My friend was a school teacher in Juneau and had no reason to lie to me. See, that's the thing I love most about encounters, is when the person telling the encounter has no reason to lie or nothing to gain. Those to me are the most interesting. Another individual shares, I totally relate to what you said, Alex. I was 10 and rolled over in my bed, and there it was at my window. It could have reached in and grabbed me. It was the most traumatic event of my life. I stopped playing in the woods, and we couldn't and wouldn't go outside at night. It left massive footprints. I sleep with blackout curtains so I can't see out and nothing can see in. I haven't been in the woods since I got out of the military in 1994, and I grew up in the Ozarks of Southwest Missouri. Please reach out. I would love to talk to you if you'd be willing to talk about what you experienced. I grew up when the news reports came out about the Momo, or Missouri Monster, that was spotted by some children on top of Star Hill in Louisiana, Missouri back in the early 1970s. It was wild. I grew up just north of there, and I've been interested and on the lookout for Momo ever since. There's one comment that came in on this. The individual says, it's true. If you've truly had a close encounter with a Squatch, it'll change you forever. It did me, and I'm an Army Ranger. I won't go into the forest alone or unarmed ever again. LR Music, 2D Rangers retired. Sir, it sounds like you've had a very interesting encounter. Please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. If you're willing to share what you experienced, I am willing to listen and to try to help. Here's another experience that came in on the same video. Individual said, my first Bigfoot sighting in Salt Fork Forest in my home state of Ohio, 1987. I was 15. I moved to Alaska in 1989. I had my second Bigfoot sighting in 1990. My first Alaskan summer, my friend Curtis and I, on our way from Anchorage to Portage Glacier, I was enjoying the view of whales, mountain goats my first time, seeing whales in the wild. We get near Girdwood. Curtis pulls over, elbows me to look up in the mountain. There sits a Bigfoot looking down, either at us or at mountain goats. Bigfoot stood up, walking higher up the mountain. I left Alaska in 1995, moved back in 2008. I noticed there's no more mountain goats walking around the Chugach mountainside. Very interesting. Again, there's no reason for that person to lie about that story. It's very matter of fact, and I appreciate you sharing what you experienced at that time. Going over to episode 417, Harley Owens returns. Some very interesting things that came in on this episode. If you're not following Harley Owens, make sure that you are. Individual writes, such a wonderful interview. Great encounters. I love the Smokies. Such a beautiful area and a perfect place for Sasquatch. I grew up at the bottom of the Mitten in Michigan, about 25 to 30 miles from the Indiana border, and we had them in the woods behind our house. My parents never believed me or saw anything that I'm aware of, but I heard all sorts of things that weren't normal nature noises growing up out there, including noises sounding like the Ohio howl coming from far off in the woods and large bipedal creatures crashing through the brush at night. Haven't had the privilege of seeing one yet, but I know I've heard them plenty of times growing up in the woods. People wouldn't think that weird stuff is in Michigan, even in the lower part of the state, but I'll tell you what, I get plenty of reports from lower Michigan, and not just Bigfoot, Dogman too. And if you want an area that has both of them, Bigfoot and Dogman, look up Manistee National Forest. Here's another comment on the same video. Wow, that first sound gave me chills. 1980, southeast Missouri, the St. Francois Mountains. My dad and I were hiking up a mountain before daylight during spring turkey season. From the top of the mountain, we heard the same sound. It was loud. My dad and I looked at each other in the dark and whispered, "What was that?" That was the first time I've heard a recording of what we heard that morning. Let me know in the comments if you've heard a recording similar to what we played in that episode. Here's one. I'm still not convinced, but 2017 to 2019, I've heard a single tree knock when I had my dogs out 2 separate nights on my property. The sound came from a steep wooded area that is here in western Pennsylvania. It's pretty much woods from here all the way up into Canada without hitting any real major metropolitan areas if you can learn to avoid them. My dogs heard the tree knock the first time when I was in my pool around midnight by myself with the dogs on my deck in the dark. They jumped up and listened facing the area, and I heard one sound that sounded like someone hitting a tree with a baseball bat one time. A couple months later, I heard it again when I had the dogs out for their final walk of the evening before I went to bed around 1 a.m. And I live right next to the woods, and I really don't have any very close neighbors. It was a school night, so no kids could possibly be down in that rugged, wooded area that I've never even gone down into over the decades. I've lived here, and neither have my kids when they were growing up. It's just too steep and too rugged and thick. My dogs did not hear the sound the second time because they were busy running around, sniffing the ground next to the woods, but I heard it, and it sounded farther away than the first one because there was an echo in the valley from it. It gave me the creeps because I was wondering who the heck would be down the wooded area at this time at night. Nobody even goes down there during the day. So I went in the house and went on the computer and looked up Bigfoot sightings in western Pennsylvania or something like that. I typed into the search engine. To my shock, came up a map with dozens of sightings within a mile of my house, 2004 to 2012, with police reports. A father and his adult son watched 15 or so minutes from their property less than a mile from my home. There's one set of railroad tracks in the valley, a few hundred yards from my home, and it is wooded railroad right of way for miles. On a related subject, when I first moved here, me and my 2 sons that were in 2nd and 4th grade at the time rode our dirt bikes right from my garage in through the woods near our home. We could ride north off of the railroad right of way for miles through the woods. This never occurred to me at the time, but when I see videos of trees stacked in a pyramid, Indian teepee position on television, it struck me here in 2023-2024 that I've seen trees that were stacked in that position in the woods near my home when dirt biking, riding less than 3 miles from my home. I've seen that also when dirt bike riding in West Virginia, in Ohio, in wooded, never developed areas. And I remember thinking when I would see that, what an unusual coincidence for those trees to fall over and settle in that teepee position. Fascinating stuff. It sounds like you're going through some really interesting situations in your home area. I would love to talk to you about what's going on in your area of Western Pennsylvania. Please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Uh-oh. First call. Hi, this is Jeremiah.
Yeah, this is Dustin Smith.
Hey, Dustin, before we get started, were you able to fill out the guest release form?
Yes, I did.
Perfect. And I just want to make sure that the people on YouTube, the listeners, can hear you. Guys, if you can let me know if you can hear. Dustin was, right?
Yes.
All right, Dustin, we're going to wait a minute just to get that go-ahead before we get going here. Yes, okay, we have the go-ahead. So, also, I do hear a little bit of... am I on speakerphone, Dustin?
No, you're not. I was just turning to... I'm watching Ancient Aliens at the moment.
Dude. That's my dude. All right, cool. So you got that turned down a little bit. Awesome. That's a good show. So, okay. Well, Dustin, I'm excited that you called in. Thank you for doing that on your Saturday evening. I'm going to go ahead and give you the floor. Feel free to share any background you need to and what you've got going on, my friend.
Okay. Well, you had reached to me about contact on TikTok. I had said I had an encounter. I'm Squatch blocker on TikTok, and so I never did get back to you. So I seen this opportunity, so I took it. My experience was in I'm not sure how to pronounce it, Kiamichi Mountains or the Washita National Forest in Oklahoma. Me and a buddy of mine were going to be the first ones to kill a Bigfoot. This was back in the early 2000s or whatever. And we went into this area, and it's very near Honeybee, where they have the festival every year down there. It's about maybe 10 minutes from there. It's on the Tallahena National Drive is where we were camping. And we had started to walk. There's a little lake there. I'm not sure the acreage of this lake, maybe a 20-acre lake or whatever. And we were walking across. We both had Mossberg shotguns, fully loaded, the whole thing. And I had a big mag light with me, like the police used to carry back in the day, those big ones. And I kicked it over, and there was a shoulder next to me standing down the bank. And on the spillway, it's kind of hard to explain of how it was. We were walking on top of the spillway kind of thing, and it was down below us. And there was 3 steps, just boom, 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 and it was gone. But when my mag light kicked over, I seen the size of that thing. And it's about 2 a.m. And we'd been there several times and never had anything. And then, but the size of it, we both dropped our guns and ran back to camp and literally slept in the car and waited till the next morning to go back to get our guns. And I never took a gun again. I was like, that's going to do absolutely no good. But it was the biggest thing I've ever seen. And I don't know, I can't say it was 8 foot, 9 foot, whatever, because it was down the hill from me. All I know is the size of the arm was bigger than any human being I've ever seen. And it was just a flash and moment of total fear of, yeah, this is wrong. And then now I've become like more of, I almost want to communicate with them now more, but anyway, that was the story. There was a couple other incidences, maybe get into it another time, but I just wanted to reflect on that one.
Yeah.
And my buddy Steven, he literally never spoke to me again. He never went with me in the woods again. So it was kind of weird.
So yeah, Dustin, if we could unpack this a little bit, because I apologize. There's a lot of people I talk to on TikTok. Like, you would not even imagine the amount of DMs I have unanswered right now. It's pretty sad. But so I just want to clarify a few things. So you were in the east of Honubby area?
Yeah, I lived in Roland, Oklahoma. I worked in Fort Smith.
Okay.
And me and my buddy worked together, and it was the Honubia where they have the festival.
Right.
But where we were actually at is like Tallahena Drive. It's like right between Mena and it's like LaFleur County, Oklahoma. But it's where it was Cedar Lake. And it's just there's like horse trails there and stuff like that. And there had been a lot of reports there, and it was in the news there at the time. So we wanted to go check it out, and we went, and man, sure enough, they were there.
Okay.
And I got it. Yep. But I have literally been obsessed with like Bigfoot, Sasquatch since I was like 7 years old is when I first seen like the legend of Boggy Creek. So had finally talked someone into going camping with me to go look for it. And yeah, it was a one-time shot.
So you went camping with your buddy with the motivation in mind that you were going to bag a specimen.
Yes, exactly. Wanted to be the first ones to do it, to prove the existence. And I mean, like I say, now my mindset is completely different. Of course, that was, around the year 2000. So complete different mindset 24 years later.
So, absolutely. And I'd love to get to that mindset change in a few minutes, but I want to sit where we are for a bit. So this was in 2000. Yeah. Now, was there anything that made you want to go out, that motivated you to take this move in 2000?
I'd always been interested, and I knew they were like sighted in the area. And then there was a news story that came across the news and was talking about this guy down around there that had them coming up on his porch.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And he had supposedly shot one, but they never found anything. But he said he had sent stuff to the FBI in Oklahoma City, and that was like right around the bombing in Oklahoma City and stuff like that. So that made it even more interesting, kind of thing.
Okay,
not the bombing part of it, but the fact that he had sent it to the FBI and they had done away with the evidence, basically, kind of thing.
Oh, that's really interesting. That's a part of the story I've actually never heard before. That's very interesting. But I have heard a lot about the siege at Honubby from that time frame. So that's cool. So that was like a lot of your motivation. And then you go to Cedar Lake. You and your buddy are out, and you see a creature, and you were able to see its arm. You were able to see its leg, you said?
The arm and shoulder.
Arm and shoulder.
Mainly. I mean, arm and shoulder. And I mean, some of the torso, not a lot of detail. I mean, it was dark,
Gotcha.
But, I mean, it was 2 a.m, but I literally heard it move, and I kicked the mag light over. And the mag light's the one that holds like 4 D-cell batteries, Right. They're pretty big. The ones the cops carried at the time. Pretty bright. But not a lot of details. I just knew it wasn't a deer. I mean, I've hunted my whole life. I knew it wasn't a deer. I knew it wasn't a bear, anything like that. It was huge. And there was 3 steps, just boom, 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 and gone.
Did you get a look as to what color hair, if any?
It was definitely reddish tint.
Okay.
Reddish to blackish tint. So, I mean, it was a kind of auburn, I guess I would say.
Did you get a feel as to how long the hair was on the creature?
Maybe 4 to 6.
Yeah.
4 to 6 inch long hair.
And could you get a feeling as to how high off the ground the shoulders and the arm, which you could see, were?
when we went back the next day, we were trying to figure that out.
Yep.
Of the way the walkway goes across that spillway and stuff, and we kind of estimated it was 4 foot. It was standing 4 foot below us, and its shoulders were about at my chest, and I'm 6 foot. So
wow.
it was. I mean, it was decent size. It was a big one.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've seen other ones that were smaller in different spots. Like I've seen one in what's the name of that town? Sorry, I haven't been there in 20 years. It's Hackett. It's Hackett, Arkansas. I had seen one down there too, but it was like skinnier and was like in a garden kind of thing, taking cantaloupe. But anyway, that's a different story. I want to stay on this one because this is the one that, I mean, literally changed my life more than anything. But if I had to estimate, guess, I would say 7. And I know everybody tries to over-establish how tall they are, so there's no way it could be a human or anything. But there was literally no one else at that campground.
Sure.
I mean, we were the only ones there. It was early April, and it was still pretty crappy weather, a little bit rainy, you know. So I know there was no one else on this lake at the time because there's an RV park there now, but back at the time there was only 7 campsites on this lake, and we were the only ones there.
Gotcha.
So I know it wasn't a person or anything like that. It's just.
Was it making any sound of any kind that you heard?
No, absolutely nothing.
Okay.
It was just, as soon as I heard it move, I kicked the light over, and that's when I seen the shoulder and the arms and stuff. And it was running down the hill away from us on the spillway. But literally, like what I keep saying, the 3 steps, it just went boom, 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 gone. And
Gotcha.
It cleared. I'm 40 foot straight downhill in 3 steps.
Wow.
I mean, it was bounding out of there.
So you definitely saw the shoulder or the arm, the shoulder, and then were you also able to take a look at it when it then turned around and started bounding down the hill away from you?
At that point, once I seen the shoulder and the first move of it, how big it was, we turned the opposite direction and ran.
Okay.
Both of us just at the same time just dropped our guns and ran. Yeah, I wasn't sticking around.
I don't blame you. I haven't had the experience yet, but I don't know how I'd react. How did you feel emotionally during that time?
Initially, I guess just shocked, but also like terrified.
Yeah. Did you have the internal thoughts about, okay, what do I think this creature is?
No, there was no doubt in my mind what I seen, but there was no thought process until like the next day.
Okay.
Of even thinking of any. It became from looking for something to I've got to get away and protect myself.
Absolutely, yeah. Just primal sense just kicked in. It sounded like self-preservation.
Yeah, pretty much. I wasn't going to go look for it.
Right. Point. When you went back the next day and it sounded like you were at that area, you were kind of looking at stuff. Were you able to look for any tracks or anything?
The spillway is made of like limestone rock.
Okay.
Kind of. It's not soft at any point. It's a hard dam. They basically dammed up a natural spring to make this little lake.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that makes it interesting. Then you're not going to find much evidence at all. Did you ever look in to see if there are any other sightings in that area of, you said it was Cedar Lake, right?
Yeah, I have. I looked into like sightings on what is it, the BFRO. They have like, you can look up county sightings and stuff like that.
Right.
And there's several sightings in like LaFleur County, and then like Absolutely. The Wichita National Forest. There's a lot of sightings and stuff like that. And I can't remember exactly how many or anything like that, but there is several sightings in that area. And that's what kind of drew us to that lake to begin with, is we'd already looked it up and kind of seen how many sightings were around there. And we knew that there was a festival down there every year. And we wanted to kind of just get down around that area and see, you know.
So,
because I mean, I was already a believer. I already, you know, in my mind, like I say, since I was 7, I just knew it was real.
Right.
You know, not by any proof or anything like that, but my buddy was, I mean, staunch disbeliever. He did not believe in it at all.
Yeah.
And he had lived in that area his whole life, you know, and he hunted and everything else. He goes, nah, there's nothing down there. And then after that day, he never went camping with me again. He kind of quit talking to me at work, and just, it just kind of dissolved it. He's like, just changed his life completely.
That's wild. I can't imagine that. So he was like, I wonder if he was like, if I don't talk to this guy, I don't have to accept what I saw. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I think so, honestly, because I mean, he ended up divorced a year later, and I mean, it changed his life completely.
So I have a few questions for you, and I find this fascinating, where just the mindset of a person who's like, okay, I'm going to get a specimen. So talk me through, like, how did you prepare for, like, trying to, you know, you're going to get a specimen that is so big, and that it's probably more than one creature in the area. Like, were you prepared for that at all, or what was your mental mindset for that?
I would have to say complete dumb, because I thought it would be, I would have to say that I was going to go out there and shoot one and throw it in the back of my Isuzu Trooper and drive to town and show everybody, kind of thing. No real thought process whatsoever.
Wow.
Yeah.
Back in the Isuzu Trooper.
Yeah, I was going to throw it in the back of the Isuzu and head to town with it. You know, that was my thought process, and take it to a news place and prove it.
Wow. Probably.
And yeah, I didn't have a lot of thought process back then, but
I mean, probably lucky for you that you weren't able to have that, you know, able to take that shot, because it's my belief that usually, I mean, if you get to be able to do that, you're going to have to deal with more than one, is what I think is usually going to happen. But
well, that's what the more I've learned, because I've kept studying over the years on them and stuff like that, and the more I, you know, and once I realized, kind of, I didn't think about the fact that they moved in family packs and stuff like that back then, and now I totally believe that they move in family units. Like, if you hurt one of them, you're done, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You know, they're going to protect their own, just like we would, you know. So, I mean, and like I say, I'm glad we dropped and ran when we did.
Absolutely. I think the cool part of this account is that you're saying that eventually you get to the point where your entire mindset changes, and you're looking at things, it sounds like, completely different regarding this creature now.
Yeah, very, very much so.
Do you mind?
I don't know that it's instinctively aggressive or anything, but I'm glad that one ran away, and I'm glad we ran away, because the more I study and stuff like that, and I mean, I'm assuming they kind of have a breeding season like deer, and we may have been in that time. You don't know when, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if the males go like in ruts or anything
goodness,
like
could
that.
you imagine?
It could have been a very aggressive male around there, and that may have been a female. I don't know. You know, it could have been really bad, and I would have hate to have shot one and it been one's child or some, you know, or a teenager or something, and then the whole family be destroyed over it. I mean, and I don't know. I have a different appreciation for nature, I guess now. It's what I'm saying. I mean, I don't hunt anymore, and it's not because I'm fear of going in the woods. I don't have the heart for it anymore.
Absolutely. So did you have any interactions with them after that took place around Cedar Lake?
The one that was in Hackett, that was in a garden. We were camping out next to a garden, another friend, and we kind of peeked out, and I seen one, but it was very small, and it could have been a person. I mean, like I say, it was pretty small, but I don't know why somebody would be picking cantaloupe at 11 o'clock at night. But it was kind of just picking them up and walking off, and then it would come back and pick a couple up and walk off, and so I didn't think, I just went back to sleep. I didn't think anything about it, but it could have been, but I can't be for sure. But I think it was a small one. And that was it. That was in Hackett, but Hackett, Arkansas is where that one was.
Were you able to see any,
no details?
No details. Okay.
Just figure.
Gotcha.
Just figure in the moonlight kind of thing.
Gotcha. Interesting. But it sounds like if you got did it take you all the way over to, some people go over to, if they're discovered, they want to make sure that they launch into maybe like a conservation effort, or how would you describe what your current feeling towards them would be now?
My feeling towards them is that, this is going to sound conspiracy theory weird. I think the government already knows they exist.
Yeah.
But the reason they can't admit it and can't protect them is for the trees.
It's big timber, dude.
They won't allow them to they won't keep allowing them to cut timber down if they know they have a habitat.
Yep. Same
and that's just my opinion on it. If they admit it, then they're going to say, well, we can't cut any more trees down. We have to leave their habitat because they're endangered, and I don't know if they're endangered. I think there's a lot of them, but I mean, if there's a breeding population, I mean, if you look at, I live in Southwest Missouri, and there's, 100,000 deer hit by a car every year. And that's the only time you see them, unless you're hunting for them. You really don't see a lot of deer, but there's 2.5 million deer in Missouri, and you never really see one. So, how many Sasquatches can there be in the Ozarks, down through Arkansas, Oklahoma? Almost all of America is woodland.
Yeah.
So, there could be hundreds of thousands of them,
Dustin, that's incredible. I'm glad that you tracked me down and you're able to call in. It was one of those where I was like, man, I hope I talk to this guy someday. That is such a wild account.
Yeah. I'm just, like I say, I'm just glad I didn't turn and pull the trigger or something like that. And something I probably would regret it for the rest of my life if I would have,
Oh, absolutely.
So,
yeah.
Because the more I study on and stuff like that, I think they're way more like us than a monkey or just a wild man running around the woods or anything like that. I think they're way closer to us than we think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I mean, there's so many accounts of people that if they get them in their scope, they can't pull the trigger because they're just not sure that it's not a human being. Like it's that close, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that even happened down in Area X in Oklahoma. I mean, you can read the account of I think it was Daryl Collier that had that issue. But yeah, it's just it's a very very interesting topic. But Dustin, I appreciate you calling in. Definitely keep me in the loop with anything that might happen in the future. I know the area of Missouri. I mean, the whole Missouri has Bigfoot like crazy. So please keep me in mind if you ever experience anything else down there.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool area, and if you ever have a chance to look up the Blue Man
Okay.
of the Ozarks,
All right.
the Blue Man of the Ozarks, it's near Springfield, which is about 40 miles from where I live. And it was back in the 1800s. It's an old story, but it's a pretty cool story.
Oh, all right.
How they kind of pushed them out of this area down into Arkansas, kind of thing.
Really?
They like basically did a drive to push them out.
Oh yeah, I'll definitely look that up. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's like 1840s or 1850s, something like that. I mean, it's an old story, but I mean, it's published. So, I mean, you'd be able to find it. But,
Sure. Okay. Cool.
all right.
Well, thank
Well, it
you.
was
Thank
nice
you
to
much.
finally get a hold of you.
Yeah.
It was nice to finally get a hold of you and tell you my story. So,
Dustin, thank you for calling in.
appreciate you. I appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you, sir. You have a
Thanks,
good one.
sir. You too.
Here we go.
Hello.
Hi, this is Jeremiah.
Hi, this is Jaina. Actually, my name is Juliana.
Oh, hi.
Hi. Yes. So, are you on your radio now, or
Yes,
am I?
absolutely. And you said Juliana?
Yes, my name is Juliana.
Thank you for calling in. I would love to have you share what you've experienced. So I'll go ahead and let you take it from here.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Well, my experience, it's nothing amazing. Like it is amazing, but nothing like what your guests are experiencing. But since that time, I can't get that experience from my mind, and Mount Shasta keep calling me back, and I really want to go back. And on 2020, in August, late August, early September of 2020, I went to Mount Shasta with a group of people that I actually didn't know. I met them online, as you know, and it was crazy with all the pandemic stuff. And the bottom line is that I connected with people online that organized trip to Mount Shasta. So basically, I was going to unknown territory. I didn't know. I knew, but whatever I heard and read was enough for me to decide to go. So we met with a group. And we camped high up in a mountain, a primitive campsite, and pretty much one evening we were there for 7 days, and 8 nights. And every night, middle of the night, I would just get up out of my tent to go use a primitive restroom. And it was around between 1 and 2 a.m. I came out of my tent, and just right straight in front of me, probably about 20 feet from me, it was a Sasquatch. And it was just standing next to the tree. I had a blackish silverish hair, and just keep looking at me. It looked like it was a young Sasquatch, but it was when I said it's night at 1 to 2 a.m. at Mount Shasta, when you're high up in the mountain, you see all the stars. You feel like you can touch everything up there, and it's super bright. So it's almost like you're, you know what I mean? It's like super bright. So it's not like you're in the middle of pitch dark forest.
Right.
So I basically doubt myself what I saw. I question myself that I'm just imagining, because we talked to other people at a campsite who had some experiences and know way more than I do. So I kind of doubt myself when I went back in my tent. So next morning when I got up, we had probably about 35 to 40 people at the camp. And everybody was spread around. Then I heard from 2 other different campers that they experienced a Sasquatch that same night. And that's when I realized that I was not imagining what I saw. So that's pretty much what I don't have amazing experience, like I said, like all your guests are talking about. I just saw that Sasquatch, and that was it. You know, nothing personally related more to it.
That is still very interesting. Go ahead, sorry.
And the other 2 campers, next morning, one camper was in a tent, like I was, and she actually freaked out because she heard a breathing, and she thought was a heavy breathing around her tent, and she thought was a Sasquatch. Next morning, there was a footprint, only one footprint, huge footprint around her tent. I didn't think of it to go where the Sasquatch, where I saw it. I didn't think of it to go and look for the footprints. It didn't even cross my mind. So it was only one footprint, and like we already know, Sasquatch, they're multidimensional, so they can basically go from one dimension to another and basically go from space to space. So you don't really see them both footprints always, right? So the other camper, it was on the other side of the camp, was in a camper, like a car, and she experienced, there were few of them. She said that there were not, it wasn't only one Sasquatch, there were few of them, that they were just around her camper. So that's pretty much all. And I do remember out of 7 nights, there were one night, it was actually a full moon. I was trying to go to sleep, but a lot of people from the camp went to, there's an observation place real high up in Mount Shasta where people go and look at the stars and just the different flying objects, because you see a lot of different stuff there.
Sure.
I choose to stay in a tent because I just wanted to go sleep, and I heard some, I don't even know how to describe it, but there were some noises, which is not a noise. It was almost a screaming, but a beautiful, almost like a singing, but wasn't a human, and it wasn't an animal. And I believe that was a Sasquatch singing, or not singing, but just communicating with whoever out there. I never heard anything before like that, and I was not scared. It was not scary. It was actually very beautiful.
I've heard that. I've heard recordings like that multiple times, and I will agree with you. It does sound like someone singing, you know, almost like going up and down in pitch, and like it's a song, but you can't really understand the words. I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I have a hard time explaining it. English is also my second language, so I have a hard time explaining what it was. It wasn't a screaming, but it wasn't a singing, but some sort of noise that was actually really beautiful. I never heard that before, and I would love to experience that again.
When
and since then I can. It's already 2024, and I haven't been back. But since then, can't stop thinking of returning back. It's almost like there's a call, there's something is calling me.
A lot of people report back. That about that area from that I've talked to is like they keep getting called back to that area. Do you think that's for any certain reason or?
I don't know. I hope it is.
Right. Yeah. No, exactly.
I really don't.
Can I ask you some questions about? Sorry, yes. Go ahead. Can I ask you some questions about your sighting?
Yeah.
So you said that you saw it in the light from the stars, the moon, silverish, blackish. Do you remember any other details about what you saw, maybe height-wise or anything like that?
It was really hard. Yeah, so at middle of the night, when you are at Mount Shasta really high up, I forgot how high we were, how high that is. It was really high up. In the middle of the night, like you don't need a torchlight, unless it's cloudy, of course. But all the stars, it's just amazing. It's almost so bright that you don't need any lights, So when I saw the Sasquatch, it was standing next to the tree. So because I doubted myself at first, I thought it's a shadow from the tree maybe. But then I remember seeing the silhouette of Sasquatch and the posture, the way it standed. I can't explain it to you over the phone, but I also saw that blackish silverish color. So it's not. I know that a lot of people describe Sasquatch as dark brown or black. Mm-hmm. This was more like a black silverish, beautiful color. Sasquatch. And I think I'm not sure about a height because I was not right in front of it. You know what I mean? It was far enough that I'm not sure. I don't want to speculate, but and it was just staring at me. It was almost like when I came out of the tent. You make a lot of noise when you open the zipper.
Right. Yep.
And it's almost like I caught him in the middle of walking by, which I believe that Sasquatch is quite psychic. They can sense things, but sense things. But if they are focused into some stuff, I guess that you can call them at a moment. So I believe that's what happened at a time.
Were you?
So I was surprised. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, were you able to see anything about what the face looked like? Any details there? Or?
I mean, it looked, it's covered with a hair. And I mean, I don't know. I'm not very good in describing it. I see the image in my mind, the way I see it. And I was not afraid. I was absolutely just amazed and not afraid at all. Also, obviously, because I doubted myself at first. I thought I'm imagining things, but later I realized for sure I didn't. Especially that since then, I can't forget that image.
Oh, yeah.
It just always there, I'm sorry that I can't describe it really well, but...
oh, you're more than okay. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did it look like anything you would see in a zoo or something that you would see walking towards you down the street in the middle of the city?
No. I mean, it does look like a big gorilla, but not like gorilla. This is more humanoid features, bulky feature. You know what I mean?
Sure. As in very wide, or
wide? Yes, very wide. And I don't know, obviously, if this is a female or male, or could be even a young Sasquatch. I have no idea. But I did not experience any fear, and that's all I can tell. That I actually, since then, I just can't stop thinking of them every single day.
Wow.
Try to research more about it, and here, unfortunately, I don't listen to your show all the time. It just happened today by accident. It's not nothing but accident.
Oh, true.
I was driving and open your show, and yeah.
Oh, well,
So
thank
I'm
you for
really
listening.
happy that you guys, yes, thank you so much for having this show, for sure.
Yeah. Well, Juliana, I appreciate you calling in, and if you ever get back out there to Mount Shasta, which I assume you probably will if it keeps drawing you, and if you have anything else weird happen, feel free to reach out.
I am planning to go, and I definitely will. I have a group who's going there again this July, and I was invited, so I am not sure yet if I will make it, but if I do, I will definitely reach out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for calling. And just before you go, did you try to call from a different number before I called you back?
No.
Oh, I had two people calling at the same time. All right. Well, Juliana, I appreciate you calling in.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
You too.
Bye.
All right. Whew. That was a wild Mount Shasta. I like that one. Even though she said, it might not be too good, I was still a fan.
Hello?
Hi, this is Jeremiah.
Hey, it's John Boyer.
Hey, John. Good to talk to you. How's it going?
Yeah. All right. I made a comment about this being like the time of year for them around here. That's when I caught those two screams on the two different live streams, and then another April I found some footprints on my property. But what I wanted to tell you about was it was like 2014 or 15. I was burning some leaves, and out here where I'm at is a bunch of valleys and hills and ridges and stuff like that. And the smoke was just kind of wandering to the to the west. And it was going down through the valleys, headed toward there's a creek back up in there. And I was sitting there, it was kind of dusky, it was sunset or whatever. And I heard this big knock on a tree. I'm talking about somebody whacked the crap out of a tree, right? And my first thought was, I had a neighbor I was having problems with. And I was like, he's trying to mess with me. And then I heard a knock. It was just one knock. And it was like 200 foot up the hill. I'm like, well, how did he get up there that fast? And then I heard a knock. And it's about like 5 or 6 seconds between these knocks. It was one single knock back where I heard the first knock. And I'm like, there ain't no way that guy just ran that much distance that fast. Well, I was sitting there I was like, what's going on here? Well, then I heard 2 knocks, but they were a little more up in the woods further, right? Then I heard, it was like 5 seconds, and then I heard 3 knocks, but that was further up the woods. And then I heard 4 knocks, and then I heard 5 knocks. And then it got all the way to 8 knocks, right? Wow. And then about 5 seconds later, you hear 7 knocks. And 5 seconds later, you'd hear 6 knocks. And it was like they were communicating back till they got to the one that did the 1 knock. But they started moving around because the knocks started being in different spots. And I think what they did, they got worried about the smoke they were smelling, and they went to scope it out. That's all I can figure. But I'm telling you, I thought it was my neighbor messing with me until I realized, we're talking about like 200 foot between the knocks, and it was only like 5 or 6 seconds between the knock, and I was like, man, there ain't no way that guy just ran. He's too lazy to mess with me that bad.
John, John Boy,
yeah.
Remind me the general area you're calling from.
Oh, I'm in Henderson, Tennessee. I'm really on the outskirts. I'm at Jack's Creek.
Okay.
Good. And Jack's Creek is the creek that's pretty close to me. There's also out here, I mean, I don't know if you want to stay on the Bigfoot subject, or I could tell you something that I ran across that I found out later what it was.
Before we continue, what did we talk about last time, John Boy?
Okay, I was telling you about the first time I saw that one, and my teachers were making fun of me and stuff. I got ridiculed.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Yes. I apologize. Well,
that's fine.
So what you experienced something else weird, you're saying?
Oh, well, yeah. I was doing a live, and this is in April, too. It's something to do with April around here. Like, here lately, my dog's been acting weird, and she won't go up in the woods where she usually does. So I live in the woods. And she's scared to go up away from the house here and there, and her hair's been standing up and stuff. So I know stuff's around, and we got stuff it'll mimic, like, owls and stuff.
Sure.
And it's not an owl, because just from where the noises are coming from, you know. But what I was going to say was, and this happened a couple of years ago too, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was in my shop live streaming, and I heard my dog bark, and she was in the house, but she was barking out the back window. Well, I had a 20,000 candle watt LED spotlight, so I snuck out around behind the house, and I didn't have the light on at all, because I like, keep the darkness as my cover, right? And I only heard the direction. I heard some noise, some movement, right? I was like, all right. So I slipped on around to where I could get that spotlight and shine it on it. And when I hit that spotlight, I do not know what I saw. It looked like a cross between a greyhound and a deer that didn't have any hair on it, right? And I'm like, what in the world? And it took off running, and it was going in between my two cars in the driveway. So I sat there and I was beelining for behind the cars because it had to come out there, right? And when it came out, I was within 5 foot of it with this light shining on it. And I was realizing I did not know what I was chasing. It wasn't a dog and it wasn't a deer. It's daggum behind legs. The knees were going backwards. I don't know how to explain it. It kind of looked like a grasshopper, like. And it had, like, no ear. It had, I don't know how to explain it. Almost all right, say it's like the size of a deer, right?
Okay.
But the way its head looked, it looked like a possum. It just had black eye sockets and nothing was glowing out of them. And it didn't have any ears. And that thing, when it was running, it was going, woof, woof, woof. It was like grunting, right? And I was like, whoa, I got to stop. Because I'm still trying to figure out what I saw. And the thing went to the end of my driveway, and I have a cable across my driveway. It stopped. It ducked under the cable. And when it got on the other side of it, it just looked at me like, you know what? And then it walked off. So I told my neighbor about it, and he goes, you saw a skinwalker. I'm like, dude, what is a skin? I didn't know anything about it, right? So I Googled it, and that's what it looks like. I was like, okay, it was a skinwalker. But, that's crazy.
That's wild. Definitely not Bigfoot, but have you seen Lord of the Rings?
No, I don't. Okay. I stopped watching movies back in the 80s.
Yeah, God, no sweat. I wonder if it was like one of those pale crawler type creatures. Can you send me an email? bigfootsociety@gmail.com, John Boy. I have a individual that might want to talk to you about that. if you'd be up for it.
I'll have to get my email straightened out. I ran out of storage.
Right. Yeah.
I've got about some.
hold on. Can I have them contact you at this phone number to talk about it? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool. I'll pass it on.
But I mean, that's something right there that, I mean, usually people know about something, then they go looking for it. I ran across it and then found out what it was.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't figure out, I mean, it was skinny, man. You could see it was rib bones and stuff. Yeah. And it kind of looked like a greyhound, but the back legs wasn't right on it. And I looked where it ran, because I got a gravel driveway. It's a lot more sand and gravel. And it was leaving like, all right, how can I explain it? Not like a split hoof, but like 2 hoofs. You know what I mean? Like it had a double split. So it was leaving 3
I got
things.
you. Yeah, they want to talk to you, dude.
Was that really one? I mean,
there's a person that I know that'll want to talk to you about this. She's doing research on it. Did you say this was Henderson, Tennessee?
Yeah, that's the closest big town. That's where Great Hardman University is, if you've ever heard of that.
Okay. Wow, John Boy, I'm glad that you contacted again. Yeah, because it's not Bigfoot related, but it is still very, very interesting, and I'm glad that you told me about it.
Well, out in my woods, I get all sorts of wood structures and stuff, you know,
really?
little teepee things, and just all sorts of crazy stuff. But yeah. Oh, I'll tell you something else I've seen around here.
All right.
I had my dog, and this is, all right. She was on top of the highest point of my property, which there's a road that runs on that ridge, right? And I was down probably, I don't know, I'll say 60 foot from her. Well, out of the corner of my eye, I caught what looked like a headlight, right? So I turned to look to see who was coming down the road, and this is daytime. And that light just went into nothing. Well, I looked, and my dog was looking exactly where that light was, too. And I've got neighbors, they talk about all these orbs they see on my property. He goes, oh, what coming on?
Wow.
So,
could be Bigfoot related, though. I mean, there's a lot of accounts with Bigfoot and orbs, John Boy, and even Bigfoot controlling orbs. I've gotten an account from Iowa. Look out. Did they say what color they were?
Well, I guess they're just white. That's all I've ever seen, like just white ones.
Just white.
This one dude, he used to like to walk out in the road at night and stuff and look at the stars, and he'd be in front of my property, and he'd say they're just floating around out there. I've never really seen them that much. I've caught some. I've caught what looks like, I've looked into the woods and there'd be like a round circle of distortion, like, you know, a mirage does on the road, a heat mirage.
Yeah.
And see it disappear and stuff.
Like a
and
portal.
I've taken pictures, and there's nothing physically in front of me when I'm doing it. But when I look at it, you can see, like, I mean, it looks like Bigfoots, but they're not manifest in physical form.
Right.
I guess you could say.
But you can see them when you take the photo.
Oh, yeah, and then when you enhance it, you really can bring them out, and these things look like they're 15 foot tall, and there's like 4 or 5. They remind me of like ancient ones. It's just weird. I don't know.
Phew, dude, you got some stuff going on. I would say keep an eye out. I'm sure you're already keeping an eye out for stuff, but John Boy, you got some stuff going down there in Tennessee for sure.
There's a black panther out here too.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, and I found its den by accident and videoed in front of it from about, 30 feet. And I thought I heard my stomach growl, but I knew it didn't growl, so I just thought maybe it was a jet or jack brakes. But when I got home from recording, you could hear it growling the whole time. And I enhanced the video, and you can see its head.
Wow. Oh, that's wild.
Oh,
man.
That's like a quarter mile from my house toward the creek. I haven't told anybody where it's at because I don't want wildlife coming out here. I mean, it's been out here. I saw it 8 years ago.
Okay.
3 different times.
Wow.
Yeah. But look, I'm sorry I jumped off the Bigfoot subject, but there's stuff that I didn't know existed that I ran across, and I thought you might want to hear that, and about those knocks, because they were moving around out there. I could hear the knocks, and they were changing positions.
And that I've heard in other accounts as well, where they kind of triangulate almost stuff. It's really weird stuff. So I'm glad you called in for sure, John Boy, to share all that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, keep in touch, brother.
I will. Thank you.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Bye.
Whew. Tonight's kind of a wild one. If you would like to call in with your Bigfoot encounter, talk to me live, like the calls you just heard, just go over to the Bigfoot Society YouTube channel, and I do the live show starting at 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time every Saturday night. Sometimes we're just pretty chill. Sometimes we get calls all night long. So you're not going to want to miss it, and you can call on in. More info on how to do that when the show is actually going on. Just want to take a few minutes to say thank you to you, all my listeners, for listening to the podcast. Please take a minute to help out the show by subscribing on YouTube, making sure you hit the bell so you don't miss any notifications, and share the episode on YouTube with a friend. Also, if you're listening to us on a podcast, thank you so much. Make sure that you're subscribed, share the show with a friend. Really, it's all about sharing the show wherever you can. If you've had a Bigfoot encounter related to the following or know someone who has, please reach out to me at bigfootsociety@gmail.com or pass on my email. Here's the list. All right, I'm going to use this space this week to announce that I'll be at the Sasquatch Summerfest in Oak Ridge, Oregon as an attender. I won't be presenting or anything, but I'll be hanging out, trying to interview people that have had Bigfoot encounters. If you're from the Oak Ridge, Oregon area or surrounding and you've had a Bigfoot experience, please contact me directly, bigfootsociety@gmail.com. Also, Priscilla was nice enough that if you get your tickets through SasquatchSummerfest.com and use code BigfootSociety, you can get 50% off the cost of your tickets, which is a big amount. So code Bigfoot Society to get 50% off your tickets, SasquatchSummerfest.com, and helps out the podcast as well. A special thank you to all the Bigfoot Society Patreon and YouTube channel members. It's your support that helps keep the show going, and I extremely appreciate it. One more thing. Okay, here's the deal. So we're at the point, guys, where there's no stopping us. We are going to full-time podcast no matter what. But I need your help to get there. I figured it out, and we need approximately 700 more people in the Patreon in order to reach our goal of going full-time, actually able to go to places, people that have been having Bigfoot activity, interview them face-to-face, check it out for myself, all that good stuff. If you guys can, guys, this is the time. If you can at any time become a supporting member of the Bigfoot Society, go to patreon.com/the Bigfoot Society. I would appreciate it. It's going to help us get to the next level, pretty much the final level. You guys are amazing for listening. If you can't become a supporting member, please share this episode everywhere you can. Share it with anyone who's into Bigfoot encounters, and that means a world to me as well. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time.
and I can get on here and we can tell our stories. Maybe there's somebody else out there listening that's too afraid to tell their story. Maybe this will give them the courage to come out and not feel so bad about it. Who cares what anybody thinks? I know what I saw. I know what's out there. That's all I care about.
Please let people know. Please let them know. If you ever see one of these things, you need to tell. Because if you don't, then shame on you. You know? Shame on you.